London, 1808. The bells of St. Martin's Church were silent. Guests whispered in the pews, their faces turning from pity to judgment with each passing minute. At the altar stood Lord Edmund Thornbury, Earl of Ashford, his jaw tight, his hands clenched at his sides. The bride had not arrived. Miss Clara Ashby, daughter of a respected country doctor, had disappeared. No note, no explanation, just an empty carriage and a wedding that would never be. By nightfall, scandal had painted its verdict across every drawing room in England. The Earl had been jilted, the bride had fled, and society would never let either of them forget. 10 years passed, like stones dropping into still water. Each one left its mark. Lord Ashford retreated to his country estate, a man transformed from eager bridegroom to bitter recluse. His heart, once open and trusting, had become a fortress. He refused invitations, he avoided society, and he never spoke of Clara Ashby, the woman who had destroyed him on what should have been the happiest day of his life, until the morning his housekeeper gave notice. Mrs. Pettigrew had served Ashford Manor for 30 years. Her departure left a void that needed immediate filling. The estate steward placed advertisements in London and the surrounding counties. Applicants arrived, were interviewed, and departed, each one somehow lacking the competence or composure required for such a demanding position. Then came the letter, written in a careful, elegant hand on plain paper. The applicant's name was Mrs. Clara Winters, a widow seeking employment. Her references were impeccable, her experience detailed, her request simple, a position that offered security and purpose. Lord Ashford never conducted household staff interviews himself. That task fell to Mr. Graves, his steward, a man of precision and propriety. But on this particular afternoon, as Graves prepared to meet the final candidate, fate intervened in the form of an urgent matter requiring the steward's immediate presence in the village. A dispute over property boundaries that could not wait. Graves approached the Earl in his study, his expression apologetic. "My lord, I must attend to the Denby matter at once. Might you conduct the interview with the housekeeper candidate? She arrived punctually and waits in the servants' hall." Lord Ashford looked up from his ledgers, irritation flickering across his features. At 36, he remained handsome despite the lines of bitterness that bracketed his mouth. His dark hair held threads of silver now, and his green eyes, once warm, had grown cold with accumulated disappointment. "Is this truly necessary, Graves?" "I fear so, my lord. Mrs. Pettigrew departs in 3 days. We are quite desperate." With a resigned sigh, the Earl rose. "Very well, send her to the morning room." Clara stood in the servants' corridor, her heart pounding beneath the plain grey dress she wore. 10 years had passed since she had last stood in this house. 10 years since she had fled on what should have been her wedding day. Her hands trembled slightly as she smoothed her skirts. The cap covering her chestnut hair was modest, appropriate for a woman seeking domestic employment. Her face, once round with youth, had grown leaner. Hardship and heartbreak had carved away softness, leaving dignity in its place. She had not intended to return. When she saw the advertisement for Ashford Manor, every instinct screamed to turn away. But circumstances had left her no choice. Her savings were gone. Her last position had ended when the household dissolved after her employer's death, and something deeper, something she barely dared acknowledge, had drawn her back to the one place she had sworn never to see again, the place where Edmund lived, the man she had loved, the man she had destroyed. A footman appeared. "Mrs. Winters, his lordship will see you now." Clara followed him through corridors she once knew by heart, past the portrait gallery where Edmund's ancestors gazed down with stern expressions, past the music room where she had once played piano for his mother, The house remembered her, even if she was meant to remain a stranger. The morning room door opened. Clara stepped inside, her gaze lowered respectfully, as befitted her station. Then she looked up, and met the eyes of the man she had fled from 10 years ago. Lord Ashford stood by the window, the morning light falling across his features. He was examining some papers when she entered, barely glancing up. "You are Mrs. Winters?" he asked, his voice deeper than she remembered, edged with the weariness of years. "Yes, my lord," Clara replied, her voice carefully modulated. Her accent had changed slightly, softened by time spent in northern counties far from this place. He gestured to a chair. "Be seated. Mr. Graves has reviewed your references, but I have several questions regarding your capabilities." As she sat, Clara kept her eyes downcast, her heart hammering. Would he recognize her? 10 years had changed them both. She had been 22 when she fled, a girl on the cusp of womanhood. Now she was 32, a woman marked by hardship. Her face was thinner, her manner subdued, and the vibrant joy that had once defined her had long since been extinguished. Lord Ashford moved to sit opposite her, and for the first time truly looked at her face. Something flickered in his expression, gone too quickly to name. "You have managed large households before?" he asked. "Yes, my lord. My previous position was with Sir Thomas Grenville in Yorkshire. Before that, I served Lady Harewood in Derbyshire." Both were true. After she had fled London 10 years ago, Clara had rebuilt her life, far from society's watchful eye. She had taken a position as a lady's companion, then progressed to housekeeper when her employer recognized her capability. The work had been demanding but honest. It had given her purpose when everything else had turned to ash. "Your references speak highly of your organizational skills and discretion," the Earl continued, his gaze steady on her face. "Discretion is essential in this household. I value my privacy above all else." "I understand completely, my lord," Clara replied, meeting his eyes briefly before looking away. Did he see it? Did some part of him recognize the woman who had stood beside him at that altar dressed in white, her hand in his, before terror had driven her away? If he did, he gave no sign. His expression remained impassive, almost cold. The warmth she remembered, the gentle humor that had once lit his features when he looked at her, all of it had vanished. This was not the Edmund she had known. This was a man hollowed out by betrayal, by years of isolation and bitterness. The position requires managing a staff of 20, overseeing all domestic arrangements, and ensuring the smooth operation of the household, he stated, his tone businesslike. "You would report directly to me, as I have no lady of the house to supervise such matters." The words struck her like a blow. No lady of the house. He had never married. In 10 years, he had remained alone. "Because of her, because of what she had done, I am prepared for those responsibilities, my lord," she managed. "I have experience coordinating staff, managing budgets, and handling all aspects of household administration." He studied her for another long moment. Then, abruptly, he rose and moved to the window, his back to her. "You may begin Monday next. Mr. Graves will provide details regarding your quarters and duties. The salary is £60 per annum, with room and board provided." Clara's breath caught. She had the position. She would return to Ashford Manor, not as the Earl's bride, but as his servant, a woman invisible except in her utility. It was more than she deserved. It was a punishment she would bear willingly. "Thank you, my lord," she said quietly. "You will not regret this decision." "See that I do not," he replied without turning. "Discretion and efficiency are all I require, nothing more." The dismissal was clear. Clara rose, curtsied, though he could not see it, and departed the room on unsteady legs. As the door closed behind her, Lord Ashford remained at the window, his reflection ghost-like in the glass. His hands gripped the sill with white-knuckled intensity. He had recognized her. The moment she entered the room, something in the tilt of her head, the curve of her cheek, had sent recognition crashing through him like a wave against rocks. Clara Ashby, the woman who had destroyed him, sitting in his morning room, dressed in widow's grey, asking for employment. 10 years had not dimmed his memory of her face, though time had refined her features, removing youthful softness and replacing it with dignity. He knew her. He would have known her in darkness. Across a crowded room, in any disguise she might wear, and he had said nothing. Some part of him wanted to call her back, to demand an explanation for the betrayal that had haunted him for a decade, but a deeper instinct, one born of self-preservation, had kept him silent. If she wished to hide, to pretend they were strangers, then so be it. He would keep her secret. And in doing so, he would finally have the answers to questions that had tormented him for 10 long years. Why had she fled? Where had she gone? And had she ever, for even a moment, felt the crushing weight of regret that had been his constant companion since the day she vanished? Clara returned to the servants' corridor, her composure intact, until she reached the privacy of a small alcove near the kitchens. There, she leaned against the wall, her breath coming in short gasps. He had not recognized her, or, if he had chosen silence over confrontation. Either possibility filled her with relief and unbearable sadness in equal measure. She had been so close to him, close enough to see the lines around his eyes, the hardness in his expression that had not been there before. She had done that to him. Her cowardice, her fear, her terrible decision had transformed a gentle, loving man into this cold stranger. Mrs. Pettigrew found her there moments later. The departing housekeeper, a kindly woman with silver hair and shrewd eyes, studied Clara with open curiosity. "You've secured the position, then?" "Yes," Clara replied, straightening. "I begin Monday next." "His lordship can be demanding," Mrs. Pettigrew warned, though not unkindly. "He keeps to himself mostly, sees few visitors, takes meals in his study more often than the dining room. But he's fair and he'll not trouble you beyond expecting competence." Clara nodded. "I shall endeavour to meet his expectations." The older woman hesitated, then added, "He's a good man, Mrs. Winters. Life has not been kind to him. There was a tragedy years ago, before I came to service here. A broken engagement that left him quite changed, or so I've been told. He's never recovered from it." "How sad," Clara whispered, the words barely audible. Indeed, some wounds cut too deep to heal. Monday arrived with autumn rain. Clara returned to Ashford Manor with a single trunk containing her few possessions. She was shown to the housekeeper's rooms, a comfortable suite of chambers in the west wing, far from the family quarters. The space was simple but adequate: a bedchamber, a small sitting room, and a writing desk, where she could manage household accounts. From her window, she could see the gardens where she and Edmund had once walked, where he had proposed on a spring evening, his eyes bright with love and hope, where she had said yes, believing their future stretched before them like an endless summer day. She turned from the window. That girl no longer existed. That future had been ashes for 10 years. All that remained was the present, and the penance she would pay by serving the man she had destroyed. The household staff assembled in the servants' hall. Clara surveyed them with a trained eye. The butler, Mr. Dawson, was a man of dignity and precise habits. The cook, Mrs. Henley, ruled her kitchen domain with firm efficiency. 2 ladies' maids, 3 housemaids, 4 footmen, 2 stable boys, and various other staff completed the household. "Mrs. Winters comes to us with excellent references," Mr. Dawson announced. "She will oversee all domestic arrangements and reports directly to his lordship." You will extend her every courtesy and cooperation. The staff nodded, their expressions ranging from curious to reserved. Clara had learned long ago that earning a staff's respect required consistency, fairness, and competence. She would prove herself through actions, not words. The first weeks passed in a blur of activity. Clara immersed herself in the running of Ashford Manor. She reviewed account books, inspected linen closets, coordinated cleaning schedules, and ensured every detail of household management proceeded smoothly. The staff gradually warmed to her. She was demanding but fair, quick to praise good work and patient in correcting errors. She did not gossip or play favorites, and she possessed an uncanny ability to anticipate needs before they arose. Lord Ashford remained a distant figure. He took breakfast in his study, rode out to inspect his estates most afternoons, dined alone in the small dining room, or, more frequently, with a tray in his library. Clara coordinated his preferences without direct interaction. She learned his habits through observation and Mr. Dawson's reports. The Earl preferred simple meals, strong tea in the morning, no visitors unless on estate business. He rose early, retired late, and filled his days with work that left little room for reflection or companionship. Yet sometimes she felt his eyes on her, passing in corridors, across the entrance hall when he departed for his morning ride. At those moments, Clara kept her gaze lowered, her manner professional, but her heart raced, and she wondered if he was still choosing silence or if he truly did not recognize her. The answer came on a November evening. Clara was reviewing menus in her sitting room when a knock interrupted her work. "Enter," she called, expecting one of the housemaids. Instead, Lord Ashford stood in her doorway, tall and imposing in evening dress. His presence filled the small space. Clara rose immediately, her heart leaping to her throat. "My lord, I apologize. Had I known you required something, I would have attended you in the study." "I require a conversation, Mrs. Winters," he said, his voice calm but his eyes intense. "May I?" He gestured to the chair opposite her desk. "Of course, my lord." She remained standing until he was seated, then lowered herself carefully back into her own chair. Her mind raced. This was it. He would confront her, demand answers, perhaps dismiss her from his service. Lord Ashford studied her for a long moment. Then he spoke, his words measured. "You have managed the household admirably these past weeks. The staff speaks well of you. The accounts are in better order than they have been in years. Thank you, my lord. I am pleased my service meets your standards." "It exceeds them," he corrected. Then, leaning forward slightly, he added, "which is why I find myself curious about certain inconsistencies in your history." Clara's breath stilled. "Inconsistencies, my lord. Your references are genuine. I had them verified. Yet there is a gap of nearly a year between your previous positions, and your manner, your bearing. It speaks of education beyond what one might expect from a woman in domestic service." She chose her words carefully. "I served as a lady's companion before entering household management, my lord. That position required certain refinements." "Indeed," he replied, his gaze never leaving her face. "And the missing year?" "A personal matter, my lord. One I prefer not to discuss." His jaw tightened. "I value honesty in those who serve me, Mrs. Winters. If there are matters in your past that might reflect poorly on this household, I require full disclosure." Clara met his eyes directly for the first time. What she saw there took her breath away. Not ignorance, not mere curiosity, but knowledge, and beneath it, a pain so deep it made her chest ache. He knew. He had known from the beginning, and he was giving her the chance to acknowledge it, or to continue the charade. "My past contains nothing that would bring scandal to your door, my lord," she said quietly. "You have my word on that." "Your word." The words held bitter weight. And should I trust your word, Mrs. Winters? Given that some people's words have proven worthless in the past, there it was, the acknowledgement, not direct, but unmistakable. Clara's hands trembled in her lap. People change, my lord. Suffering refines or destroys. I hope I have been refined. Lord Ashford rose abruptly. He moved to the window, his back to her, his shoulders rigid. For a long moment, silence stretched between them. Then he spoke, his voice low and rough with suppressed emotion. 10 years ago, I stood at an altar. I waited for a woman I loved more than my own life. She never came. No explanation, no farewell. She simply vanished, leaving me to face the pity and judgment of everyone who had gathered to witness our union. Clara's eyes filled with tears she could not shed, not here, not now. The not knowing was worst of all, he continued. Had she died, been harmed, abducted? Every dark possibility haunted me. I searched, hired investigators, offered rewards. Nothing. It was as if she had never existed. My lord, Clara whispered, but he held up a hand to stop her. For years I wondered what I had done to drive her away. What fault in me had been so terrible that she preferred disgrace to becoming my wife? I questioned everything. My character, my worth, my judgment, and gradually the pain hardened into something colder, safer. I learned to feel nothing, because feeling meant remembering, and remembering was unbearable. He turned then, and the look on his face nearly broke her. So, I ask you, Mrs. Winters, should I trust your word, or has experience taught me that words are merely sounds people make before they disappear? Clara rose on shaking legs. Every instinct screamed to confess, to fall to her knees, and beg forgiveness for the unforgivable, but fear held her silent. The same fear that had driven her from the church 10 years ago. I have given you no cause to doubt my service, my lord, she managed. That is all I can offer. His laugh was harsh, empty of humor. Service, yes, you have been exemplary in your service. He moved toward the door, then paused, looking back at her. There is a ball at Heriton Hall next week. As I have no wife to oversee preparations, I require my housekeeper to accompany me. You will coordinate with the staff there and ensure all runs smoothly. We depart Friday morning. Clara's heart sank. A ball, society, the very things she had fled. My lord, surely another would be better suited. I am meant to remain invisible in my role. And yet I find you quite visible, Mrs. Winters, he replied, his eyes holding hers with uncomfortable intensity. Perhaps it is time you stepped out of shadows. Friday at 8, Erin. Be ready. He left, closing the door quietly behind him. Clara sank back into her chair, her composure finally crumbling. He knew, he had always known, and now he was bringing her back into the world she had abandoned. She did not understand his purpose, but she felt the weight of it. This was not kindness. This was something else, a test, perhaps, or a punishment. Either way she would face it. She owed him that much, and infinitely more. The carriage ride to Heriton Hall was conducted in near silence. Clara sat across from Lord Ashford, dressed in a simple dark dress appropriate for a senior servant. He wore evening attire, his expression unreadable as he gazed out the window at the passing countryside. You have been to Heriton Hall before? He asked suddenly. Clara's hands tightened in her lap. Once, my lord. Many years ago. The Heritons host an annual ball. It was at such an event that I once introduced my betrothed to society. She was lovely that evening, shy but radiant. I remember thinking myself the most fortunate man in England. His gaze shifted to her face. Strange how memory preserves certain moments in perfect detail while others fade entirely. Memory can be both blessing and curse, my lord, Clara replied carefully. Indeed, And what do your memories tell you, Mrs. Winters? Do they counsel you to remain silent, to continue this pretense? Her breath caught. My lord, I do not know what you mean. Do you not? He leaned forward slightly. Very well. Let us speak plainly. I know who you are, Clara. I have known from the moment you entered my morning room. Did you truly believe I could forget your face? That 10 years and a widow's cap could disguise you from me? The words hung between them. Clara felt tears burn behind her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Why did you hire me? She whispered. If you knew, why did you not turn me away? Because I wanted answers, he replied, his voice rough. And because some part of me, a part I despise, needed to see you again, even if it meant enduring this torture. I am sorry, Clara said, the words hopelessly inadequate. I know that means nothing, that it changes nothing, but I am sorry for what I did to you, Edmund, for the pain I caused, for the life I stole from both of us. His name on her lips seemed to break something in him. His hands clenched into fists. Sorry, you are sorry, as if that word could undo 10 years of hell. Do you know what it did to me, standing there watching the minutes pass, realizing you were not coming? The pity in their eyes, the whispers that followed me for years. Yes, she whispered, I know, because I have lived with that knowledge every day since. It has been my punishment and my penance. Then why? He demanded, his voice rising. Why did you flee? If you felt even a fraction of what I felt for you, how could you simply vanish? Clara's composure shattered. Tears spilled down her cheeks as she finally spoke the truth she had carried alone for 10 years. Because I was terrified, because I was not who you believed me to be, and because I could not bear to see the moment when you discovered the truth and stopped loving me. Edmund stared at her, shock replacing anger. What are you talking about? What truth? She drew a shaking breath. My father was a doctor, yes, a respected man in our village, but he was also a gambler, my lord. He owed debts he could never repay, debts to dangerous men. When he died, those debts fell to me. Why did you not tell me? Edmund asked, his voice strained. I would have helped. Paid whatever was owed. It was more than money, Clara continued, her voice breaking. The man he owed, Mr. Blackwell. He came to me the week before our wedding. He said if I married you, he would expose my father's debts publicly. He would ruin your family's reputation by association. But if I disappeared, if I broke the engagement and vanished, he would forgive the debts and leave your name untouched. That is why you ran. Edmund's voice was barely a whisper. To protect me, to protect your family from scandal, Clara corrected. You were an Earl. Your family's honor mattered. Blackwell showed me evidence of my father's crimes, gambling, fraud, debts to criminals. If that became public through our marriage, it would destroy everything you had built, everyone you cared for. Edmund closed his eyes, pain etched in every line of his face. So you sacrificed yourself, and me, and the life we could have had, because of threats from a criminal. I was 22, Clara said, her voice thick with tears. I was foolish and scared and alone. My mother had died the year before. I had no one to turn to, no one to advise me. Blackwell gave me one day to decide. I chose what I thought was the honorable path. I chose to protect you, even if it meant destroying us both. You should have trusted me, Edmund said, his voice rough. We could have faced it together, found another way. I know that now, she whispered. But then all I could see was the shame I would bring to your name, the scandal that would follow you. I could not do that to you, Edmund. I loved you too much. The carriage had stopped. They had arrived at Harriton Hall, though neither had noticed. Outside, lamps blazed and music drifted through the night air. Inside the carriage, two people sat in the wreckage of revelations, 10 years too late. What happened to you? Edmund asked finally. Where did you go? North, Clara replied, wiping her tears with shaking hands. I used the small amount my mother had left me to travel far from London. I took work as a companion, then as a housekeeper. I lived simply, alone. And I have thought of you every single day since. Edmund's jaw worked as he struggled with emotions too long suppressed. I searched for you, for years. If I had known, if you had just told me. I know, she said. I was wrong, Edmund. I thought I was being noble, but I was just a frightened girl who made a terrible choice, and we have both paid for it ever since. A footman appeared at the carriage door, waiting to assist them down. The ball awaited. Society expected, but nothing would be the same. Edmund looked at Clara, really looked at her for the first time since she had re-entered his life. He saw the woman she had become, marked by hardship but not broken, dignified in her suffering, still beautiful to him, despite everything. We will attend this ball, he said quietly. We will fulfill our obligations. And then, Clara, you and I will have a much longer conversation about what comes next. Yes, my lord, she whispered. Edmund, he corrected gently. In private, you will call me Edmund. That much at least we can restore. She nodded, unable to speak past the emotion clogging her throat. They descended from the carriage. Clara followed Edmund into Heriton Hall, her role as housekeeper requiring her to coordinate with the household staff while he attended the social gathering. But something had shifted. The truth, painful as it was, had finally been spoken, and though neither knew what the future might hold, the silence between them had been broken at last. The ball was as grand as Clara remembered. Crystal chandeliers cast prismatic light across polished floors. Ladies in silk and jewels swept past in the arms of distinguished gentlemen. Music swelled and receded like ocean waves. Clara moved through the servants' corridors, coordinating with Heriton's staff regarding refreshments and accommodations. Her duties kept her occupied, but her mind remained in that carriage, replaying every word spoken between her and Edmund. He knew now. The secrets that had poisoned 10 years of both their lives were finally exposed to light. But knowledge brought no easy resolution. How could it? The damage was done. The years lost. The suffering endured. Knowing why did not undo the consequences. She was checking linen arrangements in the guest wing when Lord Heriton's butler found her. Mrs. Winters, his lordship requests your presence in the East Gallery. Clara's heart skipped. Lord Ashford? Yes, madam. He was quite insistent. She followed the butler through corridors, humming with the distant sound of revelry. The East Gallery overlooked the ballroom, a space designed for observation without participation. Edmund stood at the balustrade, his tall figure silhouetted against the glow from below. He turned as she approached. You asked for me, my lord. Edmund, he corrected. We are alone. You may speak to me as you once did. Clara moved to stand beside him, careful to maintain appropriate distance. Edmund, then. Though it feels strange after so long. Many things feel strange now, he replied. The truths we have uncovered change everything, and nothing simultaneously. Below them, dancers whirled in practiced patterns. Clara recognized some faces from a decade ago. They had aged, as had she. Lives had continued despite the private tragedies that marked them. I have been thinking, Edmund said, his gaze on the dancers, about choices and consequences, about what we owe to the past, and what we might still claim from the future. Clara's pulse quickened. What do you mean? He turned to face her fully. You fled to protect me from scandal. You sacrificed everything, yourself, your future, our life together, because you believed it was the honorable choice. You were wrong in how you acted, but your intention was born of love. I cannot ignore that. Edmund. Nothing can undo what was done, Clara said softly. I understand that. I expect nothing from you beyond what you choose to give. If you wish me to leave your service, to disappear again, I will do so. And if I told you I have spent 10 years becoming a man I despise, he replied, his voice raw, bitter, isolated, hard. The gentleness you once knew in me has been buried beneath layers of pain and anger. I am not the man you loved. Nor am I the girl you loved, Clara countered. We have both been changed. That cannot be helped. But perhaps we might find a way forward that honors what we were while accepting what we have become. Edmund's hand moved to cover hers on the balustrade. The touch, after 10 years of absence, sent warmth flooding through her. I do not know if I can forgive you, he admitted. The betrayal, even knowing your reasons, cut too deep, but I find I cannot hate you either. And these weeks of having you near, even in silence, even in pretense, have awakened feelings I thought long dead. What are you saying? Clara whispered. I am saying that perhaps we deserve a second chance, Edmund replied. Not to reclaim what was lost. That is impossible, but to build something new, something forged by suffering and refined by time. If you are willing. Tears spilled down Clara's cheeks. I am willing. I have been willing from the moment I saw your name on that advertisement. But Edmund, I will not bind you to me out of pity or misplaced honor. If there is to be anything between us, it must be real. It must be chosen freely by both of us. I choose you, he said simply. Wounded and weary as I am, I choose you. Because despite everything, Clara, I have never stopped loving you, and I am tired of living half a life in the shadows of what should have been. She turned to him, her heart breaking and mending simultaneously. I love you. I have loved you through every moment of these 10 years. That has never changed, even when everything else did. Edmund's hand rose to cup her face, his thumb brushing away her tears with exquisite gentleness. Then perhaps it is time we stopped punishing ourselves for the past and started building a future together, as we should have done long ago. Yes, Clara breathed. Yes, together. He leaned down slowly, giving her time to retreat, if she wished. She did not retreat. When his lips met hers, it was not a kiss of passion or desperation, but of homecoming. A return to a place both had thought lost forever. When they parted, Edmund rested his forehead against hers. There will be challenges. Society will talk. There will be those who remember the scandal and revive it. Let them talk, Clara replied. I have lived 10 years in fear of judgment. I will not waste another day that way, not if it means losing you again. Edmund smiled, the expression transforming his features. For the first time since she had returned, Clara glimpsed the man she had fallen in love with. That man was still there beneath the layers of pain. And perhaps, with time and patience and love, he could fully emerge again. We will face it together, he said. All of it. The gossip, the questions, the difficult conversations that lie ahead. But we will do so as partners, as we always should have been. Partners, Clara agreed. And in time, perhaps more. In time, Edmund confirmed. There is much to rebuild, trust, understanding, the life we should have had. But we have time now, Clara. Finally, we have time. They stood together in the East Gallery, overlooking a ballroom filled with people who knew nothing of their private reconciliation. Two souls, wounded and weary, finding their way back to each other through the darkness of regret and the fragile hope of redemption. The music below swelled. Edmund extended his hand, the gesture echoing another moment 10 years past, when he had asked a girl in a ballroom to dance. May I have this dance, Clara? He asked. We never did complete the first one. She placed her hand in his, the gesture completing a circle begun long ago. I would be honored, Edmund. This time I promise not to run, and I promise to never let you go, he replied. They descended to the ballroom, no longer hiding, no longer pretending. The Earl of Ashford and his housekeeper, soon to be something far more. Society would talk. Scandal would erupt, but neither cared. They had wasted 10 years in silence and separation. Whatever time remained would be spent together, healed not by forgetting the past, but by choosing to build a future despite it. As they took their place among the dancers, Clara felt the weight of a decade's guilt begin to lift. She had hurt him, she had hurt him, she had hurt herself, but suffering had also taught them both the true value of love, not the easy passion of youth, but the hard-won devotion of two people who had lost everything and found each other again in the ruins. Edmund's hand was firm at her waist. His eyes, when they met hers, held warmth she had thought extinguished forever. "Welcome home, Clara," he whispered, as they turned to the music. "Welcome home, Edmund," she replied, and in that moment, surrounded by strangers who knew nothing of their story, they finally completed the dance that had begun 10 years too late, and yet precisely on time. The weeks following the ball unfolded, like pages turning in a long closed book. Edmund and Clara's reunion did not proceed smoothly or without difficulty. There were conversations that lasted deep into the night, questions that had festered for years demanding answers, and moments when old pain rose up to threaten the fragile bridge they were building. But they persevered. Edmund invited Clara to take dinner with him in the evenings, no longer as servant and master, but as two people rediscovering one another. They walked the gardens where he had once proposed, speaking of the years lost and the future they might claim. Clara told him of her life in the north, the loneliness, the guilt, the constant wondering if he had moved on or if he remained trapped in the past as she had been. Edmund shared his own journey, the bitterness that had hardened his heart, the isolation he had chosen, the walls he had built to protect himself from ever being hurt again. "I became a man I did not recognize," he admitted one evening as they sat by the fire in his study. "Cold, unapproachable. I told myself it was strength, but it was fear. Fear that if I allowed anyone close, they would leave as you had. So I left first, in every way that mattered. And now," Clara asked gently. "Now I am learning to be vulnerable again," he replied. "It is not easy. The habits of a decade do not dissolve overnight. But you have shown me that walls meant to protect can also imprison. I do not wish to live imprisoned any longer." Clara's hand found his. "Nor do I. We have both been prisoners of fear and guilt. Perhaps it is time we freed ourselves." 3 months after the ball at Heriton Hall, Edmund made an announcement that shocked London society. He was to be married to Mrs. Clara Winters, his housekeeper. The scandal was immediate and spectacular. Gossip sheets exploded with speculation. How had the Iron Earl, as some had begun calling him, fallen for a mere servant? Was she manipulating him? What game was being played? Then the truth began to emerge, bit by bit, through carefully worded statements and the reluctant confirmation of those who had been present a decade before. The story unfolded. Mrs. Winters was not a widow seeking employment. She was Miss Clara Ashby, the bride who had vanished 10 years ago, the woman who had jilted the Earl at the altar, and now, impossibly, they were to marry. Society could not decide whether to be scandalized or fascinated. Some called it romantic, a love that had endured despite tragedy and separation. Others deemed it foolish, a man binding himself to a woman who had already proven untrustworthy. Edmund and Clara ignored them all. The wedding took place not at St. Martin's Church, where ghosts of the first attempt lingered, but in the small chapel on the Ashford estate. Only close family and trusted friends attended. No grand celebration. No spectacle, just two people marked by time and suffering, pledging themselves to one another with full knowledge of their shared past and uncertain future. Clara wore a simple gown of ivory silk. Edmund stood tall in charcoal grey, and when the vicar asked if she would take this man as her husband, Clara's voice rang clear and certain. "I will. With all my heart, I will." Edmund's response was equally firm. "I will love and cherish her all the days of my life. This I promise freely and without reservation." When he kissed her, Clara tasted salt. Tears, whether his or hers or both, mingled between them. Tears for what had been lost, and tears of gratitude for what had been found. The years that followed were not without challenge. There were moments when old wounds reopened, times when Edmund's bitterness surfaced or Clara's guilt threatened to overwhelm her, but they had learned something valuable in their time apart. That love is not merely feeling, but choice. The daily choice to forgive, to trust, to build together despite the cracks in the foundation. They had 3 children, each one a testament to their refusal to let the past define their future. Edmund softened over time, the iron giving way to warmth. Clara bloomed, no longer hiding but fully present in her own life. And sometimes, on quiet evenings, they would sit together and speak of that day 10 years ago, the day that should have joined them, but instead tore them apart. "Do you regret it?" Edmund asked once. "The years we lost." Clara considered the question. "I regret the pain I caused, the suffering we both endured, but those years made us who we are, stronger, wiser, more grateful for what we have. So no, I do not regret the journey, only that we had to walk parts of it alone." Edmund drew her close. "We are together now. That is what matters, not the years lost, but the years ahead." "Yes," Clara agreed, resting her head against his shoulder. "Together. Finally and forever together." And so the story that began with a bride's flight from the altar ended with 2 people finding their way home to one another, not through ease or convenience, but through the hard work of forgiveness, the courage to be vulnerable, and the steadfast belief that some loves, once kindled, can never truly be extinguished. No matter how many years pass in silence, or how far we run from what we fear, the heart remembers, and sometimes, if we are very fortunate, it finds its way back. The tale of the Earl and the Housekeeper reminds us that our worst mistakes need not define us forever, that courage sometimes looks like returning to the place we fled, facing the person we hurt, and speaking the truths we once thought unspeakable, that love, real love, is resilient enough to survive even betrayal, when understanding and forgiveness create space for new growth. The scars remain. They always do. But scars are evidence of healing, not proof of permanent damage. Edmund and Clara both carried scars from their separation, but those marks became reminders not of pain, but of survival, of the capacity to endure, to grow, and ultimately to choose love again. Perhaps the deepest truth is this: we are all in our own ways running from something. Fear, shame, pain, the ghosts of choices made in moments of weakness. But running only postpones the reckoning. Healing begins when we turn and face what we have fled, when we speak the hard truth, when we allow ourselves to be seen, fully and completely, by those we have wounded and those who have wounded us. Edmund could have turned Clara away, refused to see her, allowed bitterness to have the final word. Clara could have remained hidden, never returned, lived out her days carrying her guilt in silence. But both chose differently, chose vulnerability over safety, chose truth over pretense, chose love over fear, and in that choosing, They found not the life they had lost, but something richer and more meaningful. A love tempered by suffering and refined by time. A partnership built not on youthful passion alone, but on mutual understanding, respect, and the daily choice to honor the bond they had finally been allowed to complete. If this story touched something in your heart, if it reminded you that it is never too late to face your past and build a better future, we would love to hear from you. Share in the comments below which moment resonated most deeply with you. Was it Clara's courage in returning, Edmund's choice to seek understanding rather than revenge, their reunion in the East Gallery? Your thoughts and reflections help us create stories that truly speak to the experiences of love, loss, and redemption. If you found meaning in this journey from separation to reconciliation, please like this video and share it with someone who needs a reminder that broken things can be mended. That time does not erase true love, but can deepen it if we have the courage to try again. Subscribe to our channel and ring the notification bell so you never miss another tale of hearts, transformed by honesty, healed by forgiveness, and made whole again through the power of steadfast love. Thank you for walking this journey with Edmund and Clara. Until our next story of second chances and the courage it takes to return home, this has been Victorian Love Stories. May you find the strength to face what you have fled, and the grace to welcome home those who once ran from you.